Hello, welcome to this photo segmented video on how to disassemble a CTM valve assembly. For the purpose of this video, we will be dismantling the air mix pressure valve. The low pressure air spray and higher pressure airless valves are virtually the same, with only the needle and air cylinder being different. For this video purpose, we will be dismantling a valve from the injector valve assembly, but it is the same style valve that comes in the CTM block assemblies. The tools needed for this disassembly are shown here: a Samez gun wrench, a needle nose vice grip, a 13mm box wrench, a 6mm box wrench, and a 4mm Allen wrench. You will also need a bench vise to secure the valve assembly for portions of the disassembly process. To begin, we will use a rag to insert into the vise to protect the valve and clamp it securely. Once secured, grip the cylinder housing and unscrew from the base. You may need a pliers as the cylinder can be very tight. If so, use a rag around the cylinder to protect from damage. Once it is loosened from the base, remove the cylinder along with the inner spring and set aside. Now using the 4mm Allen wrench, loosen and remove all 3 screws from the valve base using the crisscross method. Pull the assembly valve out and up away from the injector housing. Be sure to pull straight up to avoid damage to the needle. To begin with the full dismantling of the valve assembly, you will need the 6mm and 13mm wrenches. You will first need to place the 6mm wrench onto the flats of the brass interconnection bushing. Then proceed to place the 13mm wrench on the flats of the piston assembly body, as shown. Now unscrew the piston assembly from the brass bushing. There is high-strength glue on the threads of the bushing, so take your time and make sure the wrenches are secure onto the part. With the piston assembly now removed, there will be some glue residue on the bushing and piston inner threads. This must be removed using solvent or a pick before reassembling. We will now need to remove the nut that secures the piston seal and support ring to the piston body. For this portion of the repair, we will use the 13mm wrench and the Samez gun wrench. You will need to use the open slot on the end near the hexagonal cutout portion of the wrench. Now the opened end portion is applied to the nut on the piston assembly as shown here. With the gun wrench connected, the 13mm wrench will be applied to the piston assembly flats. Again, this is secured with high-strength glue. So when loosening the nut, be sure to have the wrenches tightly secured. Once the nut is loosened, you will notice a fair amount of glue residue on the piston body threads. Now that the securing nut is removed, pry the support washer off of the piston body. It may be slightly stuck, so you can use a screwdriver to pry it off. Now using your fingers, or with the help of a screwdriver, peel off the seal from the piston body. As you can see, there will be a buildup of glue residue on the piston body threads. The best way to remove the residue is by using a wire wheel and solvent to clean the piston body. For the cartridge assembly, Since we will be replacing it with a new one during the rebuild, it will be okay to use vice grips and or a vise on the shaft to remove the brass bushing and needle tip. Clamping the shaft and unscrewing the needle tip can be tough. Using rubber grip gloves may assist in the removal of the tip. Now to remove the brass bushing from the cartridge rod. Use the 6mm wrench while securing the rod with a vice grip. This step can be tricky as there is high strength glue on the threads. If the bushing does not want to be removed easily, you may need to remove the cartridge from the rod and mount it in a vise. A propane torch may be needed to heat both the bushing and rod to soften the glue to allow the bushing to be unscrewed. We do not recommend removing the valve indicator rod from the bushing unless it is damaged, as it is also glued with this high strength epoxy and can break off rather easily if not careful when removing. So this will conclude the disassembly of the air mix CTM valve assembly. Thank you for watching, and remember, let's enjoy being the best together.